That'll do me some good.
Yeah, seriously, it was a good week. We didn't plan it that way, but Gary, how are you doing?
I've got a cold. That's not fun at all. But I do have a
exercise.
Yeah, I thought we'd do kind of like a beginning golden flower meditation. We can't do the full one because I mean the full one takes like months of practice, you know. So
well, just to introduce it to us.
Yeah,
because I mean, the secret of the golden flower, you know, was sort of the sort of when Jung stopped working on the Red Book, you know, and because he really realized what we're going. The alchemical system is very close to the awakening of the Kundalini. You know, it's to awaken Sophia, or the soul, or something within that is dormant because we're living in Muladhara. This last section on the Kundalini yoga is probably, if you really want to know the book, is all you need to read, because it's really describing the difference between the personal and the impersonal, which Jung, or which in Hindu terminology is the stula aspect, is the ordinary aspect, and the sukshma aspect is the aspect that is occurs in the fourth dimension. Okay, it occurs in not just outside of time and space, but, you know, liberated and freed from time and space. And so, I mean, it is going to really be it's a revelation to me. I mean, because Jung is linking this whole system and started discussing it in the first place to try to understand the visions of Christiana Morgan when he's wanting people to tell him the details of her life. And he's saying that that's the stula aspect, the personal aspect, where what the development that is to occur in Christiana Morgan's life is to occur in the fourth dimension. Now, the one thing he's going to add to this, though, is that this is the personal way to the impersonal, where, you know, it's the Western way, starts with the personal and then goes to the impersonal, which is really that. So we're not going, that's why Jung says we can never adapt Eastern methods totally, because first of all, they didn't come out of the soil of Europe. And they didn't come out, and we came out of the soil of Europe, at least our psyches did. For most of us, I think, are Western, you know, have Western capabilities. I mean, Carlos might have some relationship to the Central American landscape, depending on how many generations his family has been there. But that all of that is very, very important. Let's see, Angel is coming. So anyway, we might just get started. But, you know, before we get started, I wanted to mention that what we're going to be talking about is what Muladhara is. And Jung's premise starts from this question that this Dr. Alleman started the lecture 4 with, which is really a good question, because it's been confusing us this whole time. I mean, I remember one of Marina's questions about Vishuddha, but he says, I don't understand why our daily life should be thought as taking place solely in Muladhara. Okay, would not Muladhara apply more to the life of animals and very primitive societies who live in complete harmony with nature? Should we not rather consider our cultivated life under the stula aspect of the higher chakras? The stula aspect of the higher chakras. Okay, it's not the sukshma. the awakening of the Kundalini, the awakening of the psyche. See, that doesn't happen in the Stula aspect, and that's what we're going to be getting to. The point is that the awakening of the Kundalini would have been similar to the conscious understanding of Sukshma, which is this fourth dimensional way of looking at being alive, really. And at Jungian psychology, he's saying it's the psychology of the fourth dimension. That's what he's going to say at the end of this. And, you know, it really was a expansion of what Jungian psychology is to me, because this is what Jung is saying too. And I think Gary is it's going to inform us too when Gary does the golden flower meditation. But anyway, in order to awaken the Kundalini, this is still the question, we must go down to the roots of things, to the mothers, and first of all, understand the Sukshma aspect of Muladhara, the earth. And Jung's contention is, even though we're in the 21st century, we are very advanced, that we're still living in a hole and in a pit that we can't get out of. He he gives the analogy that we're in that the cosmic chakra system is this great skyscraper, and yet it has a very deep foundation. In fact, it has 6 basements, and we can go from the lowest basement up to the 6th basement. But until we discover the psyche, hi, Jordy, and Angel and Elber, until we discover the psyche, we've never even entered the skyscraper yet. And so that's what we're going to. And it just reminded me so much, and Dawn's not here today, but of her dream that she feels in a pit like a video game. And someone shows her a quick way to get out. And doors opened above the pit and are moved by arms that look like a lattice or a structure. Then with a rocket of some sort, they blast up directly out of the pit and land above and on the surface of the earth. And so they are free. Okay, they're living in the Sukshma dimension. And when she tries this, Dawn, she doesn't shoot straight up. She goes at an angle low to the ground, and then she goes back into the pit. But anyway, that's what we're going to be talking about here, really. And it's now this is going to be very interesting and to our understanding of Jungian psychology, because you know, I think that a lot of recent Jungian psychology has decided to that they're going to be permanently rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. You know, they just seem to have forgotten that this is a bridge to the 4th dimension. You know, I mean, that's how do we interpret the black books in any other way than that? I mean, if this is the psychic experience gives us a different viewpoint of the life of our world. And now we're going to link it with the chakra system. So anyway, we start out with that we are, let me see, that we are, you know, the problem is that if you are living in Muladhara, what that means is not that you're primitive, but that your psychic life is dormant. In other words, you have not awakened non-ego. You haven't awakened the psyche. And so he says that Mr. Alleman, who asked the question, is quite correct in saying Muladhara is the life of animals and societies that are in complete harmony with nature. He says, but in our own cultivated life is to be looked as the stula aspect of the higher chakras. So this would be the higher level basements in the foundation of the skyscraper, that we're up on the 4th to the 5th to the 6th basement in the 21st century. But the awakening of the Kundalini would be similar to the conscious understanding of the Sukshma aspect, But what must we do to understand the sukshma aspect of the Muladhara, of the first 6 basements? How do we understand that? You know, and in ego consciousness, we live, we, at least our ego, the fact that we haven't awoken the non-ego aspect in our own awareness through psychic events like the one Christiana Morgan experiences. The fact that we haven't awoken that in our own life means that we're living in the stula, the 6 basements. And we can be on any level in the 6 basements, but we're still in the basement because we haven't awoken. The psychic events have not awoken in us, and we have not become, and this is one of my new wonder words, their utterance. You know, Jung says that we're supposed to, we have 2 roles. One is to be the medium of expression of the psychic event, the dream, the vision, and the other is to be the one who throws words at it. You know, so this, the medium of expression is the wordless aspect, the dance, the ritual. My wife has just been listening to Inner Work on Audible by Robert Johnson, which is has the 4 steps you have to go through a dream, and the last one is always the ritual that honors the psychic event. Okay, which is pretty much the most important part. You know, your medium expression, you're the throwing meaning at it, and then you're the you do this ritual event. And he, I've told this story before, but where the Benedictine monk has the dream, and he always hated the ritual part, and he asked Robert Johnson, "Okay, what do you want me to do now?" And Robert Johnson goes, "Go look at the bark of 10 trees." So he sighed, "Oh, what? I don't want to look at the bark of 10 trees." But he does go look at the bark of 10 trees, comes back totally transformed. And what Robert Johnson says is in the bark of those 10 trees was consisted the entire universe. He encountered the entire universe in the cosmos in the bark of the 10 different living trees, you know. And anyway, this is the aspect of the sukshma, looking at the sukshma aspect of Muladhara. So we can't understand anything if we're still immersed and identified with it. So when we're identified with consciousness and with ego, Jung says we're like American Indians in pre-Columbian times don't know they're living in America at all. You know, America is not something they've experienced because they've never been outside it. So, but only when we can reach a standpoint outside just everyday awareness through psychic events can we fully understand where we were before we experienced the psychic event. And he just says, like, if we can't understand our own country, and I think Jordy would understand this really well, you can't understand your own country until you've went to a foreign country, or any one of us who, you know, been outside their own country, then they can look back at it with refreshed eyes, you know, because it's particularly if somebody, you know, thinks your country's a little bit screwy, you know, like my Norwegian relatives think our country's a little screwy, you know. So, how then can we put aside our personal standpoint, which represents the stula aspect, and take another point of view, which will show us who we are, you know? And is it? I always get Gerhard Dorn says it's much more important to know what we are rather than who we are, and how can we find out that we are in Muladhara. And Muladhara is the condition of psychic sleep. We have no psychic consciousness, and thus can not say anything about psyche. So he began by saying that the means of culture, by means of culture, we can help to create our supra-personal values. But he says this only means that we get an inkling of psychological possibilities to reach this other state of mind. For instance, this whole lecture and seminar here is Jung speaking extemporaneously to that one paragraph question at the beginning of the seminar. And just listen to this, I mean, it's what he says is what is opaque to others is transparent to me. I mean, how he comes up with this just off the cuff is just unbelievable. So he says, in comparison with our conscious anahata character, he thinks that in the West, at least in the 1930s, when this lecture was given, that we were in anahata culture. So we had somewhat overcome Manipura, and so we weren't, driven by. This was, of course, symbolized by the sacrifice of the ram, in Christianity, and also the sacrifice of the bull in Taurus. That we had somewhat overcome Manipura, in anahata, but only in our ego awareness, because we had some control of our emotions. The Manipura, the sukshma aspect of the Manipura is something we don't know anything about. We do know something about the personal Manipura, but not the Manipura as looked at in the fourth dimension. Okay, so and he says that what's interesting as a contrast, that in India, even though we're in anahata in Europe, and remember, this is the 30s, and this is also a time before the internet and before there was, we're almost a global community. And so our information in the 30s about, other societies was often very done by people who didn't have a lot of, they hadn't developed a modern sympathy for the fact that we are not, the ultimate culture here. But anyway, he said that in India, their reality is their personal reality is Muladhara, where our personal reality is an anahata. And he was saying that because of the poverty, the lack of hygiene, and the fact that, there was like, 500 to 600 million people living there, and there's like 700 languages, just a crazy area, the Indian subcontinent. But the Indian concept of life does not understand life in its personal aspect. It looks at it from the fourth dimension, from the sukshma aspect. And looked at from that standpoint, everything becomes completely reversed. Ego consciousness can be indeed located in anahata or even ajna, but nonetheless, our psychic situation as a whole is in Muladhara. Now, we're going to keep going over this with several examples of why, or his argument, why we are in Muladhara and don't know it. Even though in our conscious life, we're in anahata or ajna. In our psychic life, that's the really, I think, the things we need to keep straight, that in our conscious life, we can be in ajna or anahata, but in our psychic life, in the fact how we have developed the fourth dimensional aspect of our psychic life, that we're still in Muladhara because the psyche is dormant, the gods are dormant, they're all asleep, And so he says, he's given an example of the Indian approach to understanding reality, the reality that he says, suppose we begin to explain the world in terms of the sukshma aspect, the fourth dimensional aspect of Sahasrara. And we started off a lecture with these words. This world in the beginning was Brahman only, because Brahman was alone and still unfolded. It knew itself only, but then suddenly it realized, I am Brahman. It created this distance, this, you know, it was the, out of the pleroma, the realm of potentiality, came the reality of I am Brahman. Okay, and in this way, Brahman became the universe. And this is actually the story of every creation myth. You know, what happens in the Eden? They eat from the tree of knowledge. They eat from the tree of I and the other. Okay, and then they are out of Eden now, and they've created the universe. So in this way did the universe come into being. So we would rightly, if we started a lecture like that, Jung is saying, as a, you know, a psychologist, he said we'd be taken for mad, or at least to be thought we were holding a revival meeting, you know. And so if we are wise and we live in reality, whenever we describe anything, we always begin with the everyday banal events and the practical and the concrete, the stula aspect, because only these things for us are beyond question real. And that'd be our professions, the places we live, our bank accounts, our families, our social connections. And we take these realities as our first premises, you know, and if we want to live at all. Now this, we don't have any choice in the West. Jung is going to say here that this is the personal way to the upper chakras, the sukshma. We have a different way than the way of the East. We first must develop our stula aspect. So we cannot attain to the superpersonal or the sukshma unless our personal life be fulfilled at the order of superpersonal side of psyche can finally be introduced. And so he's saying, this is his whole point of the whole seminars. So what is superpersonal in us is shown again and again in the vision seminars. You know, the psychic events that occur outside of ego in the fourth dimension, which demand that we be their utterance in the outer world. And our utterance is through being the medium of expression, throwing words of meaning at it, and then ritualizing it so that it becomes a part of our myth. You know, once you've ritualized it, then you say, it's our myth, you know. So in the images of our patient, we are always dealing with psychic experiences, which have nothing to do with her life as Mrs. So-and-so, but arise from, you know, the impersonal sukshma fourth dimension. And so in analysis, in Jungian analysis, the process can only begin when all of our personal life has been assimilated to consciousness. That basically means to assimilate all the wounds that have occurred in our life, our shadow life, all of those aspects need to be, we need to create, be vishuddha with them. We need to realize that these events that occurred in our life are not us. Our reactions to the events that occurred in our life are not us. We can look at ourselves and say, look at how I reacted to that event. Other people didn't react that way. only me. Why did I react that way when this other person didn't? You know, I mean, that's the Vishuddha aspect. And that would be assimilating consciousness. I mean, assimilating the personal, you know, and that's, he says, Jungian analysis cannot begin until this has happened. And then at that point, then psychic reality opens up a standpoint that we now have a standpoint, a fixed point where we can now interact with psychic events. Now, psychic events can help us assimilate these events that we don't understand. You know, they throw us around. Myself, personally, how many decades did it take me to realize that I was an air creature, an air being? You know, it took me maybe 2.5 decades to realize that, you know, but I did it through dreams, and it was a slow awakening. You know, I'm not saying I'm anywhere farther along, but at least my dreams tell me that I'm a little closer to the earth, you know, so I can only go by that, you know. So the same thing happens in Kundalini yoga with this difference. In Kundalini yoga, there is no personal way. The ego plays no role, okay? That's not our world. Our world is the personal way. So in Jungian analysis, or any way of relating to, not even in Jungian analysis, and I told my wife, you know, let's not call it Jungian analysis. Let's call it being in tune with the song of the universe that exists in us, that we were born with, you know, being in tune with it, you know. I mean, because it wants to sing, and it wants us to sing for it, you know, and it wants us to unfold as it was meant to unfold. And it grieves when we don't, when we just ignore it because of our willful, you know, just, we don't, we are the falcon that can no longer hear the falconer. And we think the falcon is that belongs to the falconer, is the property of the falconer, is now free and independent, yet it should know that it belongs to that center and doesn't know it, you know. So anyway, this standpoint, this experience answers the question as to how we can free ourselves from the overwhelming realities of everyday existence. And you know, this is one of the real points of the of being why we are in Muladhara, is because we are entangled inextricably with the overwhelming realities of our external life, and we can't escape it. I mean, it's got us entangled. Now, you can live with all these entanglements if you're not entangled. You can be detached from that existence. I mean, you can be living at the still point that the Buddha sat, and Kama can come and throw all his spears at you, and they turn into flowers when they reach you. Or he can have his 3 beautiful daughters dance in front of you. And by the way, their names are desire, fulfillment, and regret. And they don't move you either. You know, the final one was where you need to become a creature of the collective consciousness. And that was Dharma. You have a duty in the outer world. And the Buddha touches the earth, and it's called Bhumi Spasha. And he lets the earth be his witness to be here. You know, so that still point is the one that has disentangled itself from fear, desire, and social duty. You know, now you can be a very dutiful person, but you don't want to identify with that duty and make it your religion. You know, you need to know that you have this still point over here, and that's who you are, not this who you identified with. But anyway, so now he does symbolize this by the this beautiful painting that Christiana Morgan did, which is I don't know if you can see it, but it's is that a visible? It's you know, is it's got a water wheel in the back. Well, that's Svadhisthana, and then she's enveloped in flames, and that's that is Manipura. You know, and isn't it interesting too that the first chakra after Muladhara is the water chakra. And what does water represent in our dreams? You know, it just always represents the unconscious. You know, the whenever we see water, we always know that this is the svadhisthana. This is the baptism, the immersion in to the unconscious. So we have even reached ajna in our personal consciousness, and culture in general might be an anahata, but that's still in the personal, still the stula aspect. And as long as ego identifies itself with consciousness, it's caught up in this world, in the world of the Muladhara chakra. And we can only see this is so when we have an experience that transcends consciousness. Okay? Psychic events, you know. I mean, once you have... You know, first of all, here's a question. Are we even going to be gripped by the psychic event? You know, like, you know, one of the interesting things about Jungians is they all tend to be introverts. Well, let's say you're an extrovert and and you have a psychic event, but it doesn't grab you and grip you. You know, and that's kind of what Manipura, I think the sukshma aspect of Manipura is that you're seized by it, you're gripped by it. You can never go back to Muladhara. And Jung says it's like Wotan. You know, when he leaves his eye in the unconscious, he can never, it's always going to be there. He always has one eye in the depths. Now, is that it? Are our dreams, are our visions going to seize us? Do we really feel that we need to, this is the path we want to go down? Maybe not. You know, this might not be for everybody. But that, and then we'll be happy in living the Muladhara existence. But what Jung is saying, that a lot of the people that came to him, you know, that they'd done everything in their lives and found it empty. You know, there was just a certain emptiness after everything happened. There was a certain emptiness. And that's because we as egos are somewhat empty shells. And we know this person who understands or has an inkling or an intuition that their lives are empty, that's an awakening. And the awakening is that our ego is a shell. It's an empty vessel meant to be filled with myth, with symbols and images that we are the utterance of in the outer world. So we're supposed to create a story. I mean, we're here to create a story, but not just a, you know, he was born, he lived and died, like Snoopy writes in Peanuts, but, you know, it's to be the story, this wonderful following. I mean, you know, we went through a wonderful dream series with Tim, one a very beautiful one, and it is it's a story. You know, it is a story that you could stitch together. You know, I mean, and what's that one? There's a play which has a lot of different dead people come back and tell their story, you know, and they're all different, but then they're all tied
You're talking
together.
about our town?
Yeah, our town. You know, I mean,
Yeah,
that's kind of
beautiful.
what, yeah, it's kind of what our dreams are like. They're just these different events, but they're all connected at the end, you know. Yeah, our town. Yeah, thank you, Tim. You know, and so anyway, the symbols of the chakra afford us a standpoint that extends beyond consciousness. Now, what is amazing about the chakra system, and I've got to end here, you know, pretty quick, but they is again what Jung is saying is that this is like some supra-personal consciousness looked down on our psychic life, and it has created this system of 7 chakras, you know, really 6, because the 7th is the egress out of it, out of the whole system, you know. And the fact that they discovered this nuance is wonderful. And Jung says it's a symbol too. You can't take, well, let's just take the Anahata chakra out and only or we'll take out any chakra we don't like and we'll just discover no, this is a symbol, has nothing can be removed. That's why it's a symbol, because there you can't divide it, you know. And so he says, since we can't divide it, that's why it's almost impossible to encompass as a totality. He says we can look at the particularities of each chakra, but to understand the whole is to be this super-personal consciousness that revealed this to somebody, you know. I mean, you know, if you want to see a system like this that was revealed to someone, go read the Seeress of Provorst, or look at the Big Fish Dream in Ion, you know, where there's 4 circles, you know, and then at the end, in the Big Fish Dream, he tells about the 4 circles. There's a wonderful statement by this disembodied voice about each circle. And then he mentions the 4th that reunites with the 1st. You know, I mean, it's this one, and the Seeress of Provorst had this wonderful, each circle had a different color, you know, and she could see people, what circle they were in, what circle they came from. Like she knew what chakra they came from. So, you know, you say, where did the Kundalini come from? Well, you know, she just had she had a wonderful balance between being able to express her schizophrenia and experience it at the same time, at least for a certain period, you know, before she kind of lost consciousness. And the fact that this was recorded is really incredible, you know. So anyway, the chakra system gives us some intuitions about the psyche as a whole. And that's what Jung says is the great value of the chakra system to us, is it gives us some intuitions about the psyche as a whole, like the Big Fish Dream does, like the Seeress of Provorst does, like the astrological signs do. You know, what's interesting about the astrological signs, in just what Jung said, you can't remove any one of them. You have to understand the whole. And your personal stula aspect might be, hey, I'm Aries, you know, and what's that mean? Well, you're living in that last age of Pisces going into Aquarius. What does that mean? You know, I mean, it's sort of a, you know, has both qualities, but where did these come from? It's amazing, you know. So anyway, they symbolize the psyche as it appears from the cosmic standpoint, the chakra system. And it's as if, and this is, this super consciousness surveys the psyche, looks at it from the angle of the fourth dimension. So it's outside, totally outside, free and liberated entirely from the space-time that we're prisoners in. And it then describes this system. And in the 21st century, the highest forms of our consciousness, according to it, the fourth dimension, not according to us, as far as our how high we went above, say, dolphins, or a community of gorillas, highland gorillas, which are very highly developed animals. But in our eyes, we have created a great distance from that world. But in the eyes of the fourth dimension, we're still in the basement, because we have not discovered that the fourth dimension exists and it's real. That's what Jung says, the first realization to get out of Muladhara is, I am not the master in my own house. And how many of our dreams tell us that? That's a real psychic event when it tells you that, So that's the viewpoint of the fourth dimension, that we're still in the basement. And so we need to get out of that. And the only way we can do it is through through psychic events, experiences of our own psychic events. Let's see, what we say we are Ajna, we have we're Albert Einstein, or say we are, just name anybody who's extremely high, say we're Kant or Plato or something. I think Plato had a little bit of religion. I don't know how much, say David Hume or somebody like that had, but we at least have become very abstract, and we're living in a world of ideas and forms now. So we're in Ajna, but we're still a spark of light imprisoned in the world of non-psychic events. And when we think, all our thinking, all our philosophizing, all our philosophies of life are in terms of this world, not in terms of the fourth dimension. Don't bother if you don't want the fourth dimension, but in terms of the fourth dimension, we are imprisoned in the cave, Plato's cave, with the shadows on the wall, but in Kundalini, they think in terms of the great light. Thinking starts not with the personal ajna, the highest level that can be achieved by ego. It doesn't start there, but it starts in the cosmic ajna. So thinking does not begin with ego. Thinking begins with Brahman. So think like Brahman, not like ego, So, and our thoughts begin with the individual and go out to the general. And in Hindu, they begin with the general and work down to the individual. So from the Sukshma aspect, everything is reversed. You start with Brahman and you go down to ego. You don't start with ego. You can't start with ego. So from this aspect, we realize that everywhere we are still enclosed in the world of causality. Is the Buddha, enclosed in the world of causality? No, because he's sitting at the immovable spot. The immovable spot's outside of desire, fear, and duty. And he touches the earth and lets it be his witness to him. So he sits on the earth too, But our Nahata center is where he keeps saying this. I mean, we're kind of going over this over and again. But he says, before we get there, we need, now this is the personal way. And I think this is so beautiful, the way he puts it. It's the personal way. to this realm. Before we get that far, we are not to know that we are caught up in Muladhara. Only in that way can we develop our personal consciousness to the level of the Ajna center. And only in that way can we create culture. Because until we've built culture up to that level, and I think this is what's happening with the, maybe perhaps with the astrological ages, behind that culture does stand non-ego and the psyche. And if it ever, that door ever opens up, it's going to be a good door. So anyway, we think we're at the summit of our endeavor, but we're merely the light spark of personal consciousness. And we realize that, taken from the standpoint of the psyche as a whole, we're still in Muladhara. And then he brings up the analogy of the six basements. And we have to keep this in mind, because he says, this is his criticism of theosophy, that it thinks that the personal spark is the highest light. And he's saying, no, it's not. The psyche is the light of darkness, the light of non-ego, the light of psyche is the great light, not the light of ego, not the light of Kant, not the light of Einstein, not the light of Niels Bohr, not any personal light, as no matter how incredibly genius it is. So he says, if we do that, we don't get anywhere. He says, what we'll do is undergo a tremendous inflation. And what he said before is the ego cannot become a hairless spirit. I mean, that's not going to happen. Anyway, we need to go awaken the psyche. We need to awaken the gods. We need to awaken non-ego. Then we can start to leave Muladhara. And from this state of mind, we can then look at ourselves from the sukshma aspect. And that's in the psychic events that we experience, bringing them into the world, and filling this emptiness of our ego shell. Then we start to enter sukshma, and so let's see. I guess to activate consciousness, the unconscious, means to awaken the divine, and it is to awaken the sleeping Muladhara world is the super personal, the non-ego, the totality of psyche, which alone we can attach. I don't know, I'm getting a little lost there. But anyway, he compares it to Gnosticism, and he kind of finishes, before he goes into questions, with that to the Indian, this way of thinking is the most concrete and the most substantial. He says, Brahman Sahasrara is the one unquestioned reality. It's not a belief, it's the one unquestioned reality. It's the premise, it's the ground below everything. It's not a belief, somehow it's the ground in India. But whereas to us, it's merely the final result of extremely bold speculation. But anyway, that's kind of the end. Why don't we open it up for questions? Any questions about the whole system? That's pretty much the most important part of the book. Marina, do you have any comments? Can be about anything too. It's like what's been happening in your life, or have you experienced any amazing things lately? Or
one of the things I've been doing is working with these images that I respond to on a really visceral level, that my brain can't make any sense of. But it's a process for me of just what you're talking about, trying to get beyond the experience of my body in the world into a kind of awareness of the psyche as it floats around in the sky above me. And it's interesting that the images I'm working with are mostly photographs I took 25 years ago that I've hung on to, that I couldn't really understand. And now what I'm doing is obscuring them, and to such a degree that you can hardly see what is going on. And all of a sudden they come alive. There's something about opening the portal to the unconscious in this way that for me has been really effective. And I keep writing about the process. Why is it that taking an image and making it disappear makes it more powerful? So I'm just doing a lot of exploration in that direction, especially with this kind of strange images that seem to have a ritual or a mythic element to them. So it's been fascinating for me to just think about this process in terms of what you're talking about, in terms of opening up the psyche to the transpersonal dimension. So I've been really enjoying that, and just listening to you talk, it helps develop those ideas a little bit more. I also wanted to point out the poem that Jan shared with us last week, the Hound of Heaven by Francis
Thompson, yeah.
Yeah, that was just an astonishing poem, and I've been listening to it over and over. There's a great recording on YouTube by Alec Guinness reading this poem.
Ooh.
And with his wonderfully resonant voice. It was just so astonishing to me. So that's been really rich for me this week.
Yeah. That's kind of a way to describe that is this world really seizing us and gripping us, especially when your dreams, let's say you have absolutely no interest in it at all. And yet your dreams are just the hounds of heaven. Your dreams are pushing you so hard, and yet you're sort of, oh, yeah, that was a pretty amazing dream, but, oh, what's for dinner tonight? It's not really, but yet that hound of heaven, what's the last line of that is so haunting, that I forget how it goes. I'll look it up, but yeah, it's the last line of it, or the last few lines of it are so good. I'll look it up. Yeah. Marina, what's, yeah, go ahead, Tim. Yeah, if you can put it in the.
I can pull it up here and share it.
Okay. Marina, what's been going on in your life that you want to, anything?
I've been working quite a lot and sort of revisiting some key texts in readiness for preparing a case study. And I'm revisiting Winnicott, which is not Jungian, but he talks a lot about playing and the creative potential in playing.
Oh, yes.
And there's a quote that in his book, and in one of his books anyway, and a patient said to him, "It seems that all that I have is all that I do not have."
Mm-hmm. All that I have is all that I do not have.
Yeah, and kind of, so this has been sort of settling in me, and I'm just thinking about, Kundalini. I'm thinking about you talking and thinking about, working with the unconscious and releasing energy and that creative potential within you, and making a connection somehow with that statement, all that I have is all that I do not have. That's somebody who's not awakened to the psyche.
Yes. Which is play, lila. You know, this is the idea of the whole universe is play, lila. You know, and some people were saying when they experience fourness, they'd experience fiveness. Why? What's the fifth function? It's play. It's lila. You know, and so, and Jung says that whoever created life seems like he's a combination of a great architect, you know, like say the hexagram shapes of the beeswax that they put the honey in, and the fact that they can go out and then you'll see these fabulous flowers or these birds paradise that are definitely by the inspired artist. So on the one hand is the great architect, and the other hand is the mad artist. You know, we're going to the Salvador Dali Museum on Tuesday, so I'll see a little bit of that. Jordy, do you have what's been going on in your life?
Well, not that much.
Mm-hmm.
Preparing myself for, how do you call it in English, Quaresma? There is a word. Is this period of 4 weeks of quiet diet?
Lent?
Lent?
Yeah.
Lent.
Yes.
For some sort of Lent, and disappearing for a couple of weeks of intense meditation next March.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of looking forward to that because I'm
Yeah.
a little bit tired of the 20 below zero weather here. So yeah, that Lent will be very welcome this year. You know.
Lent.
Yes.
Lent to me includes intellectual Lent.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Sometimes Jungian and the Jungian constructs are very rich in detail, and they are not easy to transform in intuitions as such, unless you master the detail enough not to be heavy.
Yes.
So sometimes it burdens me. I mean, it takes time and effort
Yes.
to grasp. In a different level, today is an election day in Catalonia.
Oh, yes, I know about that. Yeah.
And that's going to be hostile and divisive.
Mm-hmm.
Because people are near non-speaking terms.
Yes. Well, because of the great end, it's sort of like Scotland, but with a little Northern or a little Ireland thrown in, you know. I mean, they really want independence from Spain, you know, certain parties.
Not really. I mean, in the case of Catalonia, I am Catalan of origin and I know the situation rather well. There is the monotony of the small establishment.
Mm-hmm.
The shop owners, small proprietary people, well-to-do,
Mm-hmm.
they want their cake and eat it.
Yes.
And fuck the rest. And the rest is 50% of citizens.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck meaning finger. And we are a superior race and you are a jerk and kill yourself. It's that bad.
Yeah, well, it is. I don't want to. I don't know that much about it.
I mean,
Yeah.
what was a sense of patriotism, say 20 years ago, has been fully hijacked by far-right people. No nonsense, no prisoners, no rule of law. Far-right people.
Yeah, we had some Catalan people that are building a big key piece of equipment at our plant. They're from Barcelona.
Yeah.
And I said, "Are you Catalan?" "We are proud Catalan." He tells me.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I am a proud Catalan as well, but I believe in rule of law.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I am a Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, my superiority, which exists, has to do with Mendel, the genes, my mother, my exquisite education, and that doesn't make me unaccountable.
No. Mm-hmm. Well, let's hope for the best.
Well, being completely cynical, it's going to be entertaining, free entertainment, I mean.
Yes. Well, I'll keep an eye on it because I've always been a little bit interested in the movements. Even maybe how's the Basque doing? Are they still wanting some independence or not?
Well, the Basque are much more clever because they are in the best situation possible because they don't pay that many taxes.
Yeah.
They have a constitutional agreement from the 78. So they are in the best of both worlds because they run their own show. I mean, except say international relations and defense, they have the judiciary, they have the police, they have everything.
Wow. I did not know that.
So what they want more? Stamps?
Yeah. Stamps or their own currency or whatever.
And
But
or what they've got the rest, I mean, which is about the case of Catalonia, I mean, almost.
yeah. Well,
Now,
it'll be, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. This is very interesting.
There is a gap of power of people contracting the administration, plenty of pork, which is not particularly competitive. I mean, and the people in command, if they lose the Mobile World Congress, they don't care because there is not that much business for them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, here I'm not neutral. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there is an expression I am trying to translate in English, which is parasitical.
Oh, yes.
The extractive bourgeoisie, they are in command and they control the TV. It's in a way like Orban in Hungary.
Yes.
The ones who they are in command.
Yeah.
And as our Abraham Lincoln, because I am a slightly American here, said, you can fool part of the people all the time. I mean.
Yeah. Well, you're going to have to keep us updated. Now, Jordi, did you still want to do a presentation the last week in February, or is that too early still?
I will.
Okay. All right. Well, then we're going to have just the world according to Jordi. And we'll just, yeah.
I'll try to supply things which will fit in with what has been doing here. And I will go into the masculinity.
Yes.
The gender issue from Gillette and the other fellow, and Johnson, I think.
Yeah, well, just it be your time, and you can take a couple periods if you need.
The quadrant approach to archetypes,
Mm-hmm.
and a couple of things which are useful from inner voices, the development in California from the inner dialogue, and a couple of other sort of things, mind-body relations. And I have my PowerPoint almost ready. I mean, it's a matter of shuffling things and I mean, the idea is to be useful and relevant here.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, whatever you say, Jordi, I would.
And reasonably entertaining, I mean.
Yes. Well, now we're going to turn it over to Gary in about 7 minutes here. Carlos, yeah, go ahead, Jordi.
No, hi, Gary.
Oh, hi, Gary. Yeah, Carlos, do you have anything to report on what you're up to, or?
Yes, I've been listening to a podcast.
Yes.
Named Speaking of Jung.
Yes.
I don't know if you know it.
Yeah, it's a woman who does that. Yeah.
Yes, it's Laura London.
Yes.
Yes, it's excellent, that podcast.
Well, she's got some
I
great
recommend.
guests like Gary Sparks, and she has some great guests, fabulous guests.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, impressive.
Yes, it is. I would recommend that to everybody because the people that she's talking to, especially like Gary Sparks, Jeffrey Raff, she has a one with Jeffrey Raff. We were reading his book. You know, these are people who actually worked with von Franz and some other people, and Laura London is speaking with them. So it's wonderful, you know. Elber, did you want to introduce yourself or not? You don't have to, but just if you want to say a few words, but you're welcome regardless. Go ahead.
Hey, Craig. Good afternoon.
Yes.
I think there is good morning. Well, I'm Elber and I'm from Brazil, and I'm studying here in the college psychology. So that's why I'm very interested in those subjects, so I can learn, and in the future I can interact more, because I'm still in the beginning, so I cannot say much about Young, even though I like him a lot.
Yes. Well, great. You're very welcome, and I hope you come back. I think you know, the one thing that we do try to focus on here is practical Jung. It might not sound like it, but you know, we're trying to look at the, at least me, I don't know, it is on the visionary aspect of dream interpretation and our own active imagination, and we're trying to learn it. As Jung says, the culture leaves us something. That was my point about Jung just speaking so wonderfully, is who does that? And so we have to go to him to get clues on how to do this ourselves, because he gives us a little bit of a roadmap. So that's kind of what we're doing. But welcome, Elber, and I hope you come back and feel that you're welcome all the time. You know, Charles, do you have any? Yeah, thank you, Elber, very much. Nice to meet you. Charles, did you have any thing you want to report other than you didn't feel very well?
Yeah.
Or you can tell us about that too.
I mean, it was just a whole lot of being sick and throwing up really bad. You know, I had an experience recently, and you know, I can't help but feel like I'm kind of approaching things too soon and too like early. I don't know if I'm like ready to just be like knocked on my ass. I had a pretty powerful experience where I, you know, I was given some free THC edibles, and I do not, you know, I'm hypersensitive to any sort of psychoactive substances. And I thought that it was extremely low dosage, turned out not to be, and had this, just extreme affect of just raw emotional psychic energy just pouring in like a inundating flood. And you know, when it happened, I could like feel some presence on my left hand side, and it seemed like some sort of masculine force, and it was way too intense, and ego had to go into emergency, like close the valves, block everything mode, and was just shaking violently. And I was just so, and you know, I have a feeling of integrity towards natural psychoactive substances such as cannabis. I don't I think they're, you know, sacred plants. It's not just hallucination. It just increases your sensitivity to things. And, you know, unfortunately, well, I don't know if unfortunately, but not everyone has these effects because they're just, it slowly changed with me. The more, I'll just say, the more conscious I became of things, the more I was like, this is stuff that you should not just mess with casually. But I could, like, it's almost like I could just feel my life force. And I call it my energy body. And I could just feel it around me. It's like just suffering so bad. Because, well, I realized my physical health is so poor. And the ego does not feel pain. The energy body feels pain. Because you can get drugged out of your mind to not feel the pain, but the pain is still there. The energy body still feels it. Or the ego can just become distracted enough to not feel the pain. And just trying to understand and have this relationship with, like, yeah, I'm not alone. I have this being attached to me, or I'm attached to it. I'm created by it. And it's just like, you know, infinitely more intelligent than I am. Feels everything. I only feel what I allow myself to feel in my neurosis. And yeah, it was very powerful. I tried to write a bunch of stuff down.
I would like you to write it down and let's discuss it at one of our dream sessions. If you can just write an essay on it and let's just read it, because it's always interesting. I mean, you know, there's Aniela Yaffe had some accounts of people who took LSD, and they were just wonderful descriptions of sort of, and what Jung said, the one thing is that he didn't want to see the place where colors were made. Well, the thing is, he thought that it was, that he was intruding on ground that no human ever should be, you know. And I don't know why he felt that way, but he also said that you know, it puts a great burden on us because it's a moral burden. And I think in your case, it might be, how can you take this as a moral burden into your own lived reality, you know. But anyway, now I want to mention that this week we'll have the dream session Monday, but I'm wondering if we can move the one from Wednesday to Thursday or Friday, either one, because I'm going to be traveling on Wednesday. So either Thursday or Friday, just maybe vote on it, and I can do either one. But Angel or Dawn, do you have anything to say? And then I'm going to turn it over to Gary. Either one of you. Angel,
actually, no, no, not at this time, Craig, but thank you. Okay, hello, everyone, and I love to be here with you guys, so
yeah, thank you, Angel. And I would say, Angel, both you and Dawn, Dawn, I was rereading your night circus dream, you know, and I also brought up your dream of the being in the pit, because this was kind of what Jung describes where we are, that we're in a pit and we don't have a rocket to lift us out, you know. But Angel, you're very eloquent, and so if you ever do have anything to share, please do, you know. And the night circus dream, I should send that to everybody. It's just a wonderful dream. But anyway, Gary, I'm turning it over to you now. I might just take a quick break.
Craig, you muted yourself.
Well, I just said I'm going to take a quick break, and but you start, okay?
Oh, okay, sure. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so this week's exercise is a meditation, and it's around the secret of the golden flower, the book, which was, you know, written many centuries ago. And there's a number of different interpretations out there. of exactly how this meditation should be done. But the end goal of the meditation, you know, if you were to practice this for months, or years, is that to create this circulation of the light. And the circulation of the light, this is a felt sense where you feel a subtle energy, and you know, you can feel it like in the crown chakra, or you might feel it in the third eye. They actually want you to start with the root chakra, and being that we're so ungrounded in this day and age, I'm actually going to have us do the third eye, because I think that one's the easiest. The other parts of this meditation, which are fairly consistent across all the practices, is the importance of the breath work. And so in the meditation we do, we're going to spend quite a bit of time in the breath work before we attempt to do, you know, anything with trying to feel the energy. And then the other part, which we're not even going to begin to attempt, is to reverse the flow of the light around, you know, the root chakra, because it's like, you know, you'd have to be extremely advanced. We're obviously not there. So I think the other thing I want you to keep in mind is that, you know, for any of this work, especially, you know, if we start talking about subtle energies, none of this is intellect. And you have to let go of the rational mind, and you have to move from the mind into the heart. And, you know, because we're dealing with felt senses. And the other part of this is just becoming very aware of our body, instead of, you know, being in our thoughts where we normally are. So to begin this, everybody go ahead and kill your video. And I'm actually going to turn my video off too. But what I need you to do is just get in as comfortable position as you possibly can. Being comfortable for this is going to be key. So I want you to get settled, you know, see if you need to move around at all, see if you need to sink in to whatever you're sitting on. And I want you to start by just noticing your body breathing. Just notice when the body receives an inhale, and when the body releases an exhale. So for the next few minutes, we're going to shape our breathing. Bring your awareness to your navel. Notice as the navel rises and falls. You're going to feel the navel rise for a count of 4 and fall for a count of 8. So we will do this for 2 minutes, inhaling for a count of 4 and exhaling for a count of 8. I want you to isolate the breath in the belly. The chest becomes still. The belly is rising on the in count and falling on the out count. I will be silent for several minutes now. Feel the chest becoming more and more still. The breath is only in the belly. Now, I want you to let go of the counting and the controlling of the breath, and let the breath flow freely and naturally while continuing to breathe into the belly. I want you to feel the earth beneath you rising as you feel the breath enter the body. Feel the body surrendering and letting go as you release. Feel the earth beneath you rising as you feel the breath enter the body. Feel the body surrendering and letting go as you exhale. Let go of any constrictions in the body. Feel the body relax from the tip of the toes to the top of the head. Now, as you breathe in through your nose, I want you to imagine that you are pulling in prana, a life force energy, which surrounds the third eye, energizing it. And then feel yourself breathing this life force energy back out. Imagine a small ball of violet energy, of violet life, And as you breathe, it enters both nostrils and is attracted to the third eye, where you feel the energy building. Now, allow this ball of energy to be breathed back out, and pull it back in through both nostrils. Feel it at the third eye. You can feel the tingling of the energy. You feel it as light. Now breathe back out. Continue breathing this prana, this light, this life force energy in, bringing it up to the third eye. Feel the energy accumulating. You feel a sense of energy in the third eye. Now you only have to allow this energy, this light, to circulate. Imagine this energy circulating around the third eye. Now that we are more sensitive to the energy in our breath, I want you to take 5 breaths from the feet to the top of the head, then back to the feet. 5 breaths. Count backwards. Now take 5 breaths from the knees to the top of the head, then back to the knees. Now take 5 breaths from the root chakra to the top of the head, then back to the root chakra. Now take 5 breaths from the chest to the top of the head, then back to the chest. Now take 5 breaths from the third eye to the top of the head. Now take 5 breaths from the third eye to 12 inches above your head. Feel yourself coming back into your body. Become aware of the room. Hear the events going on around you. Open your eyes, and you can restart your video. Should be fully back at this point. And we will spend the next 5 minutes discussing experiences. Well,
I just
hopefully,
have never had a meditation like that before. It's wonderful. Imagining the breath going from the feet to the roof. I mean, and then going 12 inches above the head. I mean, I wished it had lasted longer, actually.
yeah. It's like, you know, all these things are always kind of introductory, and you're right, you know, so normally, you know, something like this would go on quite a bit longer. But at the same time, I think with meditation, one of the things that is important to learn is, like, you know, sort of a self-guided thing where we can, you know, as quickly as possible, take ourselves to as deep a state as possible. And, you know, and with Kundalini, and, you know, and certainly with the secret of the golden flower, you know, the breath work is really critical. So just out of curiosity, we could just do a thumbs up or a thumbs down. How many people were able to feel like a, you know, like an energy in the third eye or at the root, or just, yeah.
It's like a expanding sun, and then it was like an eclipse of the sun. It just breathed along with me.
Awesome. That's exactly what I was hoping for.
Yeah. I just saw the eclipsed sun, and then it would just go here, and then another one, aura, would just keep forming over and over again. Just as an aside, either Elber or Glenna, if you want to put your emails in the chat, I will. We can send you text, etc. But go ahead. Anybody else have any comments about the chat?
Yeah. So this is. I really like I do like a variant on the golden flower meditation. You know, because I think, you know, getting sensitive to that energy and being able to feel that circulation, you know, I think it's really key to, you know, moving past Mundahala or whatever.
Yes. Yeah, that's what everybody said. Go ahead.
Gary.
I didn't so much feel it in the third eye, but I just got really deeply into the breathing, and I just felt like I got really, really deep, and every so often I would hear a noise or your voice would come back, and that would bring me back up into awareness. But I haven't been in that deep of meditation in a long time, so thank you for that.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. You know, and again, you know, I think the breath work allows us to get grounded and to get into our bodies. And, you know, we're so not connected to our bodies. You know, we're so much of the intellect. You know, I think a key on this is getting connected to the body. And one of our future exercises, we'll do some yoga nidra exercises, meditations. Jordy, you had something?
Yes. First, thank you. Second, thank you a lot. Thanks a lot for the thing. Going to the kitchen side, what the French call the bricolage, or the nitty-gritty, to which extent it's better to be introduced to that in a passive way? I mean, with somebody else's directing the meditation, or trying to do it yourself?
Oh, by far and away, it's better to get familiar and then do a self-guided meditation. So here's my thinking on this, and I think it's really critical. You know, the real question is, how do we get to the point where we're simply not there as quickly as possible, to the gap? Yeah. And to me, this is like walking a pattern. And if we just try to go straight to the center of the pattern, that's a problem. You know, it's you can't, you know, like, I think people that just do silent meditation, they're always getting all these thoughts going on. So if we have a pattern that we walk by doing, the breath work, and then, doing the sensing and stuff, then I think, and self-guiding it, because we know where we're at. We know when it's time for the next step. We can spend as much time in each phase as we need. And so then, you'll just naturally arrive at that point of the gap of just nothingness. And you won't have, someone like me saying, and now blah, 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 So yeah, that's my thought on that. And if people want, I could kind of write something up that you might use as a self-guided meditation, because I think it's so much better to do this self-guided. Once you've got the, okay, this is what, and then you can play with it. You can find out, are there visualizations that work better? If you find visualizations that work better, you use those. And and you can work with the wording. You can turn it into verse rather than prose. I think it would be much better as verse, because then it's like you're walking the pattern of a poem. This is, and as you make it into a ritual, as Craig discussed, then as we make things into rituals, they become part of our myth. But I think meditation, just going into it silent, is it's like a very difficult thing to do, and to really hit the gap of, whereas if you do the self-guided one, where you're just kind of taking yourself through the breathing steps and the relaxation steps, there's even, and you're probably familiar with like systematic relaxation, where you tense and release, so depending on how you're feeling, you might even begin with a systematic relaxation. I know in college, I did in the psychology department that I wasn't a part of, but in the basement, they had just gotten in biofeedback equipment, and you could go in and you could sign up and you could train on the biofeedback equipment. And, and they use systematic relaxation techniques on that, at least for the initial set of tapes, and just learning, how to really deeply relax, that can take you to the gap. And so to me, the biofeedback work is, which is really more working with the body, is easily as important as, anything that we're doing as far as attempting to still our thoughts.
If you could email us too more about the golden flower meditations, I'd like to know a little bit more about
Sure.
It.
Yeah, I'll send.
I'd like to pursue this actually.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, if you can email to us. Well, anyway, thank you, everyone. Next week, we'll start back on the visions. And I thought, we might need 2 or 3 weeks on the visions, and then maybe 2 or 3 weeks with Hillman, and 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, just kind of have some variety of the masters, of this, because it's just always this new. I mean, who doesn't love Hillman, and who doesn't love von Franz, and we might even do a little Neumann, but and then we never did finish the living symbol, which Gerhard Adler is about the best. That living symbol is probably the best manual of inner work I've ever seen. We can also look at Robert Johnson's book, but we'll do it in short spurts. But anyway, thank you everybody for coming, and we'll see you next time. And maybe anybody who wants to go to the dream group, tell me whether Thursday or Friday works best. So we'll see you all next time.
Jordy has something.
Oh, go ahead, Jordy.
Jordy had something.
There is a presentation of some new book from von Franz in a couple of weeks ago.
Yes. Yeah, I have that book. If I'll send it out in the email, I have the whole book in a PDF. It's a first of 28 volumes of her collected works, and I've been sort of dabbling in it, but it's really good. This one is on the archetypal symbol of fairy tales, and I'll send it out to everybody, because I'm always. Marina said that what I want is what I don't want, or something, or what I have is what I don't have. That's kind of like me. Anything I don't have, I want. Once I get it, I don't even know. I don't want it anymore. But
All that I have is all that I don't have.
all that I have is all that I don't have. Yes.
Yeah.
Craig,
Oh,
there is a panel presentation of that book in Chicago
yes.
in a couple of weeks, and the ticket is out $50 or something.
I know somebody wanted to go in with me on it, but they're saying they're not going to make any recordings, and if anybody does make any recordings, they're going to get their hands slapped with a ruler.
Yeah.
You know? But it's the guy that's the it's actually being put out by Murray Stein's group, which is affiliated with the Asheville, North Carolina, Chiron Publications. But yes, I've been invited to it at a cost. So
you're punching the ticket, $50 or something.
Yeah, that's what they said. It was like $50 or something like that. But you know, it might be worth it because actually the second volume's coming out soon. Another thing that's coming out on March 4th, and I'll send this out to everybody, and we might want to dabble in it. It is the unpublished seminars that Jung did at what they called the ETH, or the ETH school in Zurich, which are just fabulous. They're absolutely beautiful. Go ahead, Jordy.
No, I've been in the ETH of Zurich.
Yes. Yeah, they call it the ETH or whatever they call it, but the ETH.
Federal de Zurich. It's serious, it's a small MIT. I mean, it's hard,
it's like MIT.
Nerdy physical sciences thing.
Yeah, but I actually spent $500 maybe 15 years ago to get 3 unpublished volumes of this. That was done by Barbara Hanna. I actually got it from the rare book store in the UK, and but now they're coming out, and this one is done by a railroad engineer, and he was actually the one that drove the trains, but he attended all the lectures, and they think he did a better job of capturing it than Barbara Hanna did, who was, you know, Jung's right-hand woman, or whatever you want to call her. At least she was his chauffeur. But anyway, when that comes out, I'll send it out too, but don't share it because otherwise I'll get thrown in prison.
Message received and fully decoded.
Yes. Yeah, it is. It is. Anyway, you know, like the black books and those other things. I can't read anymore unless what Jerry Seinfeld, I don't know if you guys know who he is. He's a comedian in the United States. Yeah, but he says that people with these electronic things who scroll them like a gay French king, you know, that's the only way I read anymore. It's like a gay French king. So anyway, well, thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye now.
See ya.
Yeah, bye.